Season 2, Episode 4 of 1923 is about to hit hard. Brace yourselves, because what's coming next will shatter everything you thought you knew about the characters you've come to love. Every turn is a gamble, every decision is a ticking time bomb. By the end of this episode, you'll be left on the edge of your seat, heartbroken, questioning everything. Let's dive into the chaos that will unfold as we break down what's at stake, what's at risk, and why this episode will leave you gasping for breath. Spencer Dutton has always been the strong, silent type, a man who's been through more than most, with a calm demeanor and an unshakable determination to get back to Montana, his home. But in Season 2, Episode 4, we witness him at his most vulnerable. His reputation, which has always been untouchable, is now in serious jeopardy. The events from Episode 3 have cast a dark shadow over him. The Italian mafia, the whiskey deal gone wrong, and the tragic loss of Luca, they're all going to come crashing down on Spencer in this episode. Spencer, ever the survivor, does what he does best. He keeps moving forward. But as he makes his way through the wilderness, things take a sudden, unexpected turn. Enter Marshall Fett, a character we didn't fully grasp the weight of until now. Played by a veteran actress known for her sharp, intense roles, Fate is about to challenge Spencer in ways no one has before. As a marshal, she's tasked with tracking down the worst criminals, and Spencer, with his shady past involving the Italian mafia, is now firmly on her radar. What makes this moment so suspenseful is that Spencer knows he can't afford to reveal too much. His goal is still clear: get back to Montana. But with Fate questioning him at every step, Spencer is forced to confront the choices he made. The mistakes that could cost him everything. It's a cat-and-mouse game, but with much higher stakes. He can't afford to trust anyone. But what happens when you're stuck between your past and your future? And it's not just about surviving anymore. This episode forces Spencer to reckon with his actions and figure out how to clean up his reputation before it's too late. Episode 4 will show us a Spencer who's more desperate, more vulnerable, but also more determined than ever. And when things seem like they can't get worse, they do. The deeper Spencer gets into his confrontation with Fayette, the more we start to question what he's truly capable of. His cunning intelligence has always been his saving grace, but now, faced with the sharp edge of justice, can he maintain the upper hand? Or will Fate be the one to finally catch him in the lie that's been building all season? As Spencer's journey takes another turn, the emotional weight of his character will hit harder than ever. The internal struggle he faces will have far-reaching consequences for those around him, and by the end of the episode, Spencer might find himself in a situation he can't easily escape. Is this the moment where Spencer finally breaks down, or will he rise above it all, proving once again why he's one of the most complicated and compelling characters in the Yellowstone universe? This is just the beginning, but trust me, things are about to get far darker for Spencer Dutton. The choices he makes in Episode 4 could have devastating consequences for his future. Will he be able to salvage his reputation, or will he be consumed by the very web he's tangled in? While Spencer Dutton faces the heavy weight of his past catching up with him, Alexandra Dutton is fighting a battle of her own, one that's filled with fear, desperation, and uncertainty. If you thought her journey was already intense, Episode 4 is about to push her to the brink. Her situation has only gotten more complicated and dangerous, and by the end of this episode, you won't know how she's still standing. In the previous episode, Alexandra faced the trauma of Ellis Island, a harrowing experience that should have been a new beginning for her. But just when it seemed like she might find some peace, everything spirals out of control. Her worst fears come to life when a man stalks her in a train station, threatening to steal everything she has left: her money, her security, and even her life. What starts as an innocent moment of trying to escape her past turns into a nightmare she can't wake up from. Alexandra has already been through so much, losing her family, being thrust into an unfamiliar world, and enduring the brutalities of the journey that brought her to America. But now, faced with this new threat, she has to fight back and fight hard. As she struggles to protect herself from the stranger who means her harm, her instincts kick in. She doesn't just back down, she fights with everything she's got. The confrontation quickly escalates, and in a terrifying moment of self-defense, Alexandra nearly kills the man who's been stalking her. But that's not the end of her problems. As she runs to board the train, her fear isn't just about the man she almost killed. It's the fear of what might happen if anyone finds out. Alexandra's life has been one step forward and two steps back, and now she has to live with the crushing knowledge that if she's caught, everything she's worked for will be ripped away from her in an instant. The suspense intensifies as Alexandra boards the train, alone, with no one but herself to rely on. She's physically exhausted, emotionally drained, and terrified of being caught. But there's one thing she knows for sure. She can't let anyone find out about what happened back at the station. Her only hope is to make it to her next destination without anyone realizing she's hiding a dark secret. What makes this storyline so gripping is the psychological torment Alexandra faces. She's not just fighting for her life, she's fighting for her very freedom. As the train rumbles on, we see her struggle to keep it together, knowing that with each passing mile, the danger of being discovered grows ever closer. Her journey is far from over, and the tension in her every move builds with each minute that ticks by. Will she make it through this ordeal unscathed, or will her past come back to haunt her? But the deeper questions start to arise here. Is Alexandra truly safe, even once she's on the train? Who's watching her? What will happen when she arrives at her destination, and will she finally find the peace she's so desperately searching for? Or will her past continue to chase her, relentlessly, dragging her into an even darker future? The episode promises to test every ounce of Alexandra's strength. Her resilience and resourcefulness will be pushed to their limits. But will it be enough to overcome the overwhelming forces that are closing in on her? And what kind of person will she become in the process of this fight for survival? By the end of episode 4, Alexandra will no longer be the same woman we once knew. The heartbreak that awaits her is inevitable, and how she faces it will change the trajectory of her journey. Perhaps forever. As we watch her story unfold, we are forced to ask, is there truly a happy ending for Alexandra? Or is she destined to spiral deeper into this never-ending nightmare? Episode 4 is only the beginning of the pain she will endure, and it will leave you questioning just how much one person can take before they break. Tiana's storyline is one of the most heartbreaking and intense in 1923, and in episode 4, things take a turn for the worse. The constant pressure she's been under since escaping her horrific past intensifies as she finds herself hunted and running for her life. Tiana's survival is now not just about finding safety, it's about avoiding the forces that want to destroy her, forces that are closing in at an alarming rate. Her struggle in this episode will leave you on the edge of your seat, questioning if she will make it out alive. Tiana's journey has already been full of pain. She's an innocent woman who has been caught up in the brutal realities of a time that seems to offer her no mercy. Forced to commit a desperate act of violence in self-defense, she is now a fugitive with a price on her head. Her face is plastered on wanted posters all over the state, and the ever-looming threats from Kent and Father Renaud continue to stalk her every move. In episode 4, the weight of her situation becomes even more dire. With nowhere left to hide, Tiana has no choice but to make bold moves. But as episode 4 progresses, it's clear that she's not just trying to escape. She's trying to survive long enough to clear her name, to prove that the violence she's been forced into was not a reflection of who she really is. The desperation to blend in and stay hidden becomes a constant, gnawing fear. But it's not just the authorities that she has to worry about. Even if she outruns Kent and Father Renaud, there are others out there who will hunt her down for the reward on her head. As Tiana struggles to figure out how to stay hidden, the emotional weight of her actions starts to take a toll on her. She's constantly battling the fear of what will happen if she's found, but there's also the crushing guilt of what she's had to do to survive. She may have killed in self-defense, but in a world that sees her as nothing more than a criminal, that line becomes increasingly blurred. The guilt that she carries is unbearable, and it weighs heavily on her decisions. Will she keep running, or will she try to confront her past in an attempt to move forward? The heart of this episode lies in the painful realization that Tiana may never be able to truly outrun her past. The entire episode will see her battling not just her physical survival, but the emotional scars of everything she's been through. And just when it seems like she might have a chance at freedom, we see her face the cold, hard reality that she can never truly escape. As the episode unfolds, we see Tiana trying to stay one step ahead of her pursuers, but it's clear that she is running out of options. The walls close in when Marshal Fate finally tracks her down, bringing with her the weight of the law. Tiana, who has fought so hard to escape her fate, now finds herself facing the consequences of everything she's done. There's a moment in episode 4 where Tiana will finally come face to face with the full force of the law, and it's a heartbreaking moment that will leave you questioning whether she'll ever get the justice she deserves. When fate catches up to Tiana, the entire dynamic shifts. Instead of just a hunt, the episode delves deep into Tiana's backstory. Fate's investigation into her past and the story of the crime that forced Tiana into hiding will pull the emotional strings of the audience. We see her not as a criminal, but as a victim of circumstances far beyond her control. What happened to her was not just a crime, it was a tragedy that twisted her into someone she never wanted to be. However, the episode will not offer an easy resolution. As much as Fate seems sympathetic to Tiana's circumstances, she's still a marshal. Her job is to bring people like Tiana to justice, and when she gets the full details of Tiana's life and the reasons behind the killing, Fate's focus shifts entirely. The episode leaves us with the unnerving sense that, despite her tragic past, Tiana will face even greater struggles ahead. Fayette may be inclined to help her, but that help comes with a cost. Will Tiana survive her capture and be able to turn the tide in her favor, or will she be swallowed by the system that seeks to destroy her? Tiana's story in episode 4 doesn't just showcase her physical survival, it examines the emotional scars she's carrying with her. The burden of her actions, the haunting memory of her victim, and the fear of what the future holds, these elements drive her journey forward. And by the end of the episode, we're left wondering, is it possible for Tiana to find redemption in a world that's relentlessly cruel to her? Or is her fate sealed in a way that can never be undone? As you watch, you'll realize that her battle for survival is not just against the people hunting her, but against the past that refuses to let her go. And when episode 4 ends, the heartbreak of Tiana's journey will echo long after the credits roll. In the heart of Montana, Elizabeth Dutton's journey takes a more personal and devastating turn in Season 2, Episode 4. While Spencer and Alexandra fight their own battles far away, Elizabeth is trapped in a web of physical and emotional torment that seems impossible to escape. As the episode unfolds, Elizabeth will come face to face with her breaking point, and you won't be able to look away from the crushing weight of her situation. At just 19 years old, Elizabeth has already experienced more trauma than most people do in a lifetime. She's far from the city girl she once was, now forced to live on a ranch where the harsh realities of the land threaten to consume her. After the wolf bite incident, her physical health has been in steady decline, and it's clear that she's struggling to hold on. But it's not just her body that's failing her. Emotionally, Elizabeth is on the verge of a complete breakdown. The pain of the attack is only part of the story. The isolation, the constant distance from her husband, and the overwhelming sense of loss and helplessness she feels have pushed her to the edge. Elizabeth's story in this episode is heartbreaking because we see her torn between two equally painful choices. On one hand, she feels the deep, ever-growing need to escape the oppressive, dangerous life she's been thrust into. She's physically and mentally drained, and it seems as though the land, the people, and even her circumstances are slowly suffocating her. She wonders if she's made the right choice, if she can continue to survive in a world that seems to be unraveling around her. On the other hand, there's Jacob, her husband. He's not just the man she loves. He's the reason she came to Montana in the first place. The promise of a life together, building a future despite the odds, has kept her going. But lately, that future feels more like a far-off dream. The stress of being a part of the Dutton legacy, the ranch's constant struggles, and the unrelenting pace of life on the frontier have made her question whether she made the right decision in staying. The conflict between staying for love and leaving for her own survival is so raw, it's impossible not to feel the weight of Elizabeth's pain. In episode 4, Elizabeth is pushed to her limits. The physical toll of the wolf bite is growing worse, and it's clear that her condition is not improving. There's a palpable sense of hopelessness in her struggle to heal. The ranch life demands so much of her, but her body is betraying her at the worst possible time. For most of the episode, Elizabeth is seen grappling with this internal battle. She feels like she's losing everything: the ability to care for herself, the strength to face the demands of her life, and the hope of ever finding peace again. Her emotional state is fragile, and you can feel the tension building with every passing scene. Elizabeth is no longer just the young woman who entered Montana with dreams of building a life with her husband. She's become a symbol of the emotional toll the land takes on those who try to live it. And when she reaches a moment of total emotional collapse, we begin to see the fragility of her spirit, something that's been buried beneath her initial strength. The audience will be left wondering how much more Elizabeth can take before she breaks. But there's a twist in the narrative. Just as Elizabeth is about to give in to despair, a glimmer of hope appears. The news that a new baby is on the way hits her like a tidal wave. At first, this announcement seems like the last thing Elizabeth could ever want, but as she processes the news, she begins to shift her perspective. The idea of a child gives her a reason to fight, a reason to stay. Suddenly, there's a renewed sense of purpose in her life. The overwhelming darkness that threatened to consume her begins to recede, even if only for a moment. This news will change everything for Elizabeth. It's a turning point in her story, giving her the strength she thought she had lost. The baby represents not just new life, but the possibility of a future. It's a symbol of hope, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. Elizabeth's decision to stay on the ranch, to accept the reality of her situation and move forward, is not just about her. It's about the future she and Jacob are trying to build together. But, as with every decision on 1923, hope is never without a price. Elizabeth's choice to stay on the ranch and embrace this new chapter in her life will not come without its own consequences. The underlying tension in the episode hints that this decision might be fatal. What begins as a hopeful moment for Elizabeth could be the very thing that leads to her downfall. The dangers of the ranch life, the pressure on her marriage, and the demands of the Dutton legacy will continue to haunt her, and the weight of her choices will have a ripple effect on the future. By the end of episode 4, Elizabeth's fate is left uncertain. But one thing is clear: her journey is far from over. She will face even more emotional and physical turmoil, and the heartbreak she endures in this episode will shape her character in ways we can't yet fully understand. Elizabeth is no longer just a young woman struggling to survive in a harsh world. She's become a symbol of the sacrifices and burdens that come with trying to hold on to hope in a world that constantly tries to crush it. Her heartbreaking journey will leave you questioning what the future holds for Elizabeth. Can she find peace and happiness in the life she's chosen? Or will the very choice to stay on the ranch end up being her undoing? Episode 4 sets the stage for the emotional turmoil that will follow, and by the end, Elizabeth will be forced to confront a truth that will haunt her and the audience for the rest of the season. While Spencer, Alexandra, and Elizabeth's stories unfold with their personal battles and intense struggles, another figure lurks in the shadows of 1923, Donald. He may not be the most obvious antagonist, but his calculated moves and unrelenting pursuit of his own ambitions will have devastating consequences in Season 2, Episode 4. Donald is a character whose sinister presence is felt in every decision he makes, and this episode sets the stage for his rise as one of the most dangerous players in the game. Up until now, we've seen Donald as a businessman, someone who seems to be working his way into the Duttons' world with little regard for the larger consequences of his actions. But Episode 4 reveals his true nature. Donald isn't just interested in wealth or status, he's after power, and he's willing to play dirty to get it. His ambition has been growing since the beginning of the season, but in this episode, we finally get to see how far he's willing to go to secure his future, even at the expense of others. The most important development in Episode 4 is that Donald finds out about Spencer's telegram to Kara. This is the key moment that reveals just how much Spencer's return could threaten Donald's plans. Spencer Dutton is a man of great reputation, a war hero, and someone whose name carries a lot of weight. And when Donald learns about Spencer's telegram, he realizes that the Duttons still have the strength and influence to challenge him. This revelation forces Donald to take action. He knows that Spencer's return could completely derail his plans to expand his resort and solidify his hold on the town. What makes Donald so dangerous is not just his ambition, but his ability to think several steps ahead. He understands that he needs to strike fast, making sure that his resort plans go forward and that the Duttons are seen as weak. The episode delves into Donald's strategy as he works to secure investors for his ski resort, pushing harder than ever to make his dream a reality. But it's not just the financial backing he's after. Donald is also planting the seeds of doubt about the Duttons' financial stability, making sure that the town council and the people of Montana know about the Duttons' struggles. This tactic could isolate the Duttons, weakening their influence in the community and allowing Donald to swoop in and claim the power he desires. As the episode progresses, we witness Donald making connections with powerful figures, seeking to build an alliance that will allow him to expand his influence even further. It becomes clear that he's not simply playing the game for money. Donald is setting the stage for a much larger battle, one that will pit him directly against the Duttons and test Spencer's ability to protect everything he's worked for. Donald's ruthless actions will make him one of the season's most formidable foes, and by the end of episode 4, you'll understand that Spencer's clash with him is inevitable. But the true danger of Donald lies in his ability to manipulate the people around him. He's not a man who needs to fight with his fists. He fights with his mind. He knows how to play the long game, how to use others to get what he wants. And in episode 4, it becomes apparent that he's using everyone around him as pawns to further his own agenda. Whether it's leveraging the financial struggles of the Dutton family or using the town council to secure his position, Donald is always thinking several moves ahead. There's also the ever-present fear that Donald's schemes could come crashing down in